Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to the next episode of Natter with Macca. It gives me great pleasure to invite a dear friend of mine, Paul Gonzalez, to be with us today. I'll give you a bit of a brief outline on who Paul is. He was born in Texas. We love Texas, and is the GM of all business of the Brisbane Bandits, as well as being the CEO of Baseball Queensland, as well as being the Senior Vice President of the Queensland Olympic Council. He was nominated. You're amazing. He was nominated for the Gallagher QLD Administrator of the Year award. Paul's recognised as a leader within the sports sector. He played for the Brisbane Bandits from 1992 to 1998 and made a total of 227 appearances, boasting 48 home runs and 168 runs batted in, which gives him an average of 0.304, which is an excellent score for those of you who don't know what that means. Olympic silver medalist in 2004. He played professional baseball in the US, Japan, and Australia. And he is the most organised person I've ever met and has an incredible ability to perform at high levels under pressure. Please welcome Paul Gonzalez.
Thank you, Jules. Thank
Goes
you.
Wild. I didn't realise you were a Texan.
Yeah, look, and it's funny, I've done the math. I've spent more time in Australia than I did in Texas. I left Texas when I was 21 years of age out of Texas Christian University. I signed professionally out of TCU. Yeah. And my first journey was Spokane, Washington. I was there for 2 days. They flew me to Charleston, South Carolina. Then they flew me home. Then they said, well, next year you're going to Arizona, then California. Then I went to Wichita, Kansas, Las Vegas, Virginia. And so I haven't spent a lot of time in Texas since I was about 21 years of age, but my family's still there. They're all doing well. And that's the main thing. And, you know, we keep our connection through Zoom and Skype and FaceTime and all the new technology. Yeah. But it's never like being at home and having good Texas barbecue and good Mexican food.
We've had a Texas barbecue and they're amazing. So tell me, how did you get involved in baseball, and at what age was that?
Wow, it's a big question. I think it was in the blood. I think as soon as I could put a bat and a ball and a glove in my hand, I think my first official, when I say official, team that I played I was 6 years old, and played it at a little league competition in a little neighborhood in Fort Worth, Texas, which went home. I think it was last year to revisit, and even my son said, "Dad, you grew up here." You know, we talk about the whole analogy about wrong side of the tracks. Well, we were on the wrong side of the tracks, and not in the good way. It was a tough neighborhood. Most of my teammates had issues, and they went through some hardship, and some of them ended up in jail and worse. But sport allowed me to progress, and it gave me an opportunity to start what I call the journey. And I still am on it, and I love it. It allowed me to go to high school and private schools and private colleges, and then go on and play globally. Like you mentioned, I played in Italy, Japan, Taiwan, Mexico, US, Canada. I even played for Team USA when I was 17 years of age as a USA representative. And it one day led me into the green and gold, which is probably one of the most proudest days of my professional life and amateur life, was representing Australia in both 2000 and 04.
Yeah. Do you think growing up on the wrong side of the tracks gave you that toughness to make it in professional sport?
I think it helps, Jules. You know this. You're an elite athlete yourself, and as much as we want to have this depiction that, you know, that we do everything right and we're politically correct on camera, if you don't have that bit of, let's say, Aussie word, mongrel, you don't survive at the elite levels. It's competing against, and you know this from competing and it's a global stage, and Major League Baseball is a global stage. It's when they talk about World Series, it's not played against world, but the players are from the entire world. You've got players from Japan, Cuba, Mexico, Venezuela, Dominican Republic. It doesn't stop where they source these individuals to play at the elite levels. South Africa, Germany, Russia. They're picking athletes, that the best athletes they can find in the world. So if you don't have a bit of that in you, I don't think you survive. And I think the same applies even in sport, in leadership, in business, is that you still have to have an edge, and you've got to continue to invest in yourself. And I think that's what we do as athletes. We're constantly investing in ourselves. And you'll agree with this. Nobody is a harder critic than an elite athlete on himself or herself. And that's how we're programmed. We've been conditioned to be high performance people, not athletes.
Yeah, true. So in all those countries that you played in, what was some of the great memories that you had and the difference between all different countries?
Wow. As much as I love playing in the US, and that was a great experience, that was my home. So I was very familiar. It's kind of like playing in your familiar area. It's like you've competed in a game where you compete in your backyard, and then you've had to fly across the world and play in a different place. When you compete globally, it's a completely different experience. So for me, I love Japan. I lived in Kobe. I lived in the athletic dorm where the athletes lived. And when I say the athletes, the other professional athletes. And it enabled me to not only understand the sport in that country, but the culture. The other one I really loved was Italy, because I did very well there, but I had 3 days a week off, and it allowed me to go to Venice and Rome and Cinque Terres and places that we as athletes don't get a chance to do, because we're so focused on our roles as athletes in performance that sometimes we forget to take in the experiences that are around us through our journey.
Yeah, very true. So we can see in the background there behind your right shoulder, you've got your Australian shirt. Let's talk about the Olympics for you. What's it like, that moment that they read out your name that you've made the Olympics, and what was 2004 experience like for you?
I'm glad you asked me that question, and I'm glad that stays behind me, because it's a constant reminder. People don't know this. I retired in 2002. 2002, I actually retired, and I was at university doing my Bachelor of Business, and I got a phone call from the captain of a Team Australia named David Nielsen. And he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm in the library. I'm doing an assignment on macroeconomics." He said, "Why are you doing that?" And I said, "I have to transition." So even though I had tertiary behind me, it was in communications, and I thought I really want to work on the business side of developing me. So I re-enrolled into university here in Australia, and he said, "I need you to do me a favor." And I said, "What do you need, Dingo?" And you know, when the captain of Australia calls you, as you know, you jump to attention. And he said, "I need you to get yourself physically fit to compete in the Claxon Shield. And if you can show that you can play to your standard, we want you to go to Greece." And I said, "Okay, I have to ask my wife." So I actually came out of retirement, Jules, and I thought after 2000, I had achieved everything I needed to achieve in my career. And although we didn't achieve what we wanted to as our goal, and we won gold in '99 in the Worlds, in the IC Cup, excuse me, it still left something that was empty. It was a void. And we know this as elite athletes. When you go to compete in the Olympics, it's not to purchase a ticket and become a bystander. It's to win. And when Dingo says we want to go, we want to reclaim what we deserve, and that's a medal. And I told my wife, "I want to go. I'll make sure I'm ready. I'll make sure I look after you and the kid." And at that stage, I only had one. And I said, "But it's on one condition." My wife said to me, "You can go, but you better win." And that was the goal. And the journey began. And it was a balance of education, work, family. And as we all know, this is the part that people don't know, that athletes do commit to have the opportunity and the honor to represent their country. And I did that. And obviously we came home with a silver medal. And it was absolutely a great honor for our country and for the achievements of that team.
So what thoughts go through your mind as you're standing on the victory dais watching the Australian flag being raised, you know, and you've got that medal around your neck? What goes through your mind?
For me, I knew that was the end of the journey. I was actually at peace with that. I knew that my career was completely satisfied. It was like writing the best chapter of the book to close out, and the story ended like a fairy tale ending. And not every athlete gets that opportunity. Sometimes our journeys are ended because someone tells us, or sometimes it's through an injury, or sometimes we go too far and we kind of phase ourselves out. For an athlete to have the ability to, I guess, write their own chapter and finish it on that note, and just to finish on that note, my last at bat, and like I guess like in cricket or in baseball, my last at bat was a home run against Cuba in the gold medal game. And I never picked up a bat after that. And so when people say you could have kept playing, I said, yeah, but how do you top a silver medal in 2004 in Greece and you hit a home run in your last at bat for your country? It's a pretty cool ending to a very good story.
Absolutely. Gave me goosebumps. So baseball's had a very turbulent time in the Olympics. It's in, it's out, it's in and out. Why do you think that they keep changing their mind about whether they're going to keep it as a permanent sport?
It's a good question. It comes down to economics. The infrastructure cost to build a facility is in the millions. If we look at succession planning to facilities, that's a big discussion now with the probabilities of a 32 games hosted in Brisbane, it's about succession planning on facilities. So we don't want to end up what we call white elephants. So in essence, if a country like Greece potentially hosts an Olympics like baseball, that potential ground may not be utilized for further activity. So it becomes the white elephant. So what countries have started to look at is, what's going to have long-term economic return and value. So hence why now there's opportunities. Now, why does Japan host the Olympics and they have baseball? It is their religion. It's stadiums of 50,000, 40,000, 30,000. The infrastructure there they'll use it, for other events and other commercial opportunities. So when sports and countries make those decisions, there's also economic return. And a lot of the reasons is based on economic return. Beijing was easy because MLB was looking at partnerships with China eventually to develop the sport. You have 1.3 billion people. If you can capture 10%, that's a fairly good target audience. So it made good business decisions to engage the sport within the country.
Yeah, absolutely. And what keeps you excited about the sport? You've gone on after retiring to continue in it. What still sparks your interest?
That's a good question, and I'd love to answer it. I feel that in my role as a CEO of Baseball Queensland, I'm not just developing baseball players. We're developing people's skill sets to transition into life. It teaches you how to work within a team dynamic. It teaches you how to deal with success. It teaches you how to deal with failure. It teaches you how to collaborate with both teammates and coaches. It teaches you the importance of teamwork because you've got to help maintain facilities. You've got to keep team rapport. There's so many dynamics to the sport. It's strategic where you can still win and your contribution may mean you made one play, but you're a contributor. So it teaches you in life, you don't always have to be always at the front, but your contributions play a factor in the outcome. So for me, the passion is more than the sport. It's what we're developing. We're developing great sportsmen that have the ability to transition into good team leaders or into good team individuals moving forward.
So important. Well done on that. So talking about 2020 and Baseball Queensland, 2020 the Olympics has been postponed a year. How's that affected what you've been doing with the Queensland Olympic Council, and tell us a little bit about where you're at with Baseball Queensland.
Yeah, look, another really good question, Jules. And I'm fortunate. Obviously, I'm very close with the national manager and known him for a number of years, David Nielsen. One of his coaches on his national coaching staff is in my office as well, and Mr. Shane Watson. And, they're staying optimistic. I mean, they postponed the second trial game to qualify. So they're still in the running for qualification. They're staying optimistic, as we all are. I mean, what people don't know, in 2004, when we beat Japan to go to gold, the payroll in Japan, and when I say team payroll, was about 124, 125 million. Ours was 2.1 million. That's because one player was on 1.2. So our combined payroll, for that whole team was about 2 million. And that's because one player was on 1.2 against a $120+ million team. So what it shows is that, and I've used this analogy, team can beat talent any day. So if we can get cohesion with team, then we can beat talent. Now, if you're competing against talent that goes team, that's a tough journey, but you still have a chance. And I think the team's optimistic. The AOC is focusing really on the mental well-being of our athletes, because now, as you know, as an Olympic athlete yourself, your preparation is based on a timeline. And when you change that timeline, it changes your mental game. So now the AOC is working strategically with how do we maintain the mindset, not just the physical well-being of the athlete, but the mindset of the athlete to prepare for 2020. And I think because we're conditioned as high performance athletes, we just have to move that bar. And in my opinion, this is my opinion as an elite athlete, means you just change your mindset with the challenges and you just kind of move with the milestone and going, okay, it gives me another period of preparation. Now the key is managing that so you don't burn out early. And then how can I sustain my work levels under the conditions? And that will be, and you know this, how can I work on my mental game, not just my physical game? And the mental game is actually stronger than the physical when it comes down to the arena.
Absolutely. So give us a bit of an insight on what type of athlete you were. Did you get nervous before a game, or how did you cope with the pressures? And then did you maintain that focus when you're sitting on the bench for so long?
Oh, wow. Excellent questions.
God, I'm really good at this. I've missed my calling, I think. Yeah.
Look, baseball's a unique one. People, once again, that don't understand baseball, it's the only sport where you can fail 70% of the time and be a multimillionaire. You can fail 70% of the time and be a multimillionaire. So the highest paid baseball player in the US right now makes $32 million a year, and he fails almost 70% of the time, and he makes $30 million a year. So what do you think is the most important component as an elite athlete? As a baseball player, is it the physical or is it the mental?
Mental.
Correct. And so who is the mental giant in the arena, not the physical giant? I played with guys that are 6'5", 250 pounds. When you look at them physically, they should be mega stars in the big leagues and don't get out of A ball. And there's different levels to get to the big leagues. It comes down to who is the mental giant in the arena, not the physical giant. And that's what's beautiful about our game. It gives everyone a chance, but the real chance is, where are you mentally? So you asked me a question where I was. I was in between. I've done some work with a brilliant sports psych, Phil Johnsy, and Johnsy identified me as a kind of a buzz. I was the
Mozzie.
You're a Mozzie. And here's the problem. If I tried to be the thinker, then I overthought the process and I didn't have success. But if I was a thinker when I trained on specific movement, and I was a Mozzie when I played, I had better outcome. And so in the 2004 games, I played as a Mozzie, not as a thinker. In the 2000 games, I played as a thinker, not as a Mozzie. And you forget that just because the arena changed doesn't mean you change. Yeah. So you've got to play to your strengths. So I think for me, I wish somebody would have taught me that earlier in my career. We work so much on the physical, hitting, throwing, fielding, whatever, that we forget about the most important tool is here. And if we could learn those coping tools in our early 20s, and even if it takes 4 years for the seed to grow, are you going to be stronger for it? Absolutely. Yeah. And so now I really emphasize to my staff and my team, let's work on the mental well-being of our athletes as well, if not more so than we do on some of the physical.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you have a hero when you were growing up that you aspired to be like?
Yeah, I did. Look, my dad was a baseball player and he played to a certain level, not an elite level. And my uncle played as well. And my uncle went on to be a judge in the US. He was a justice of the peace, which is a small claim court judge. And he did 2 tours of Vietnam, frontline Marines, and he really became a mentor and a father figure to me. And he inspired me in my journey. My father set my physical workloads and my expectations. He was tough, but fair. So he was harder on me after games at young ages, which put more pressure on me, but it gave me better outcome. My uncle was a different kind of mentor. He gave me kind of great integrity guidelines to follow, particularly when I was in volatile neighborhoods where there was a lot of negative influencers. And my uncle is still an influencer to date. And another one would end up being my coach at 17, who was ended up being my financial advisor in the US. And he basically said to me, I want to put you under my wing. He personally sponsored me and got me on elite selection teams, which allowed me to get the exposure that I did. So I had 3 very influential people in males, but the most important influencer was my mom. Mom kept me on the straight and narrow. She had what we call the big stick, which was the wooden spoon, and we didn't cross the wooden spoon. And I owe a lot to her in guiding me early in my career, and as a baseball player, obviously, and as a young man. So I had some very good mentors. But my background, as you can tell, is Spanish, Mexican, American, Indian. And the way we run our families or manage our families is a tribal approach. So when uncle says something, you listen. When aunt says something, you listen. When grandma says something, you listen. And so we were raised by a tribe, not just by an individual. So I was very fortunate. I was raised by the tribe.
Yeah, I love that, So what do you feel, you've excelled in sport across the world. You excel now in business. What do you feel makes you great, and how do you harness that ability?
Look, it's a good question. And I don't think I'll ever harness it because I think when you're on the journey, you're trying to jump on the next stallion. So, I'm always looking at how can I progress myself, but also progress the sport or things that I have a chance to influence. So you asked me a question, I sit on the board of management, and I was interim president for about a year and a bit, 2 years. And in that time, we were a part of the Olympics Unleashed program. That's now a national program. We ran the first Olympic dinner where we raised $1.2 million, and we'd never done it before. And we didn't have a playbook. And it was like, well, how do we make it happen? And the first thing is I said, well, I'll write a business plan. And now that model is something that we use as succession planning. And obviously, you're part of that team. We've got amazing people around us to help us execute that journey. But it starts with someone taking the initiative to write that plan. And it also takes people buying into the vision. So for me, I'm about how can we continue to evolve and not be content. And so I'll always challenge myself in whatever I do. And it will be prickly for individuals. And I'm okay with that as long as it works towards the vision of what we're trying to achieve. I always say I went to a workshop in Singapore, and there was a head of Pfizer. He made a statement. He said, we are in the era of evolution. And if we don't evolve, we will evaporate. And I love it because we need to continue to evolve. And right now is a true testament of how we have to evolve. We're in an unknown time, and the people that will be agile and that'll continue to evolve will actually find something new about themselves that they didn't, and actually make them better when we do come out of this. And I'm optimistic we will, but along the way, how can we make ourselves better through this process?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely important at this time. So tell us a song that either when you hear it, it like gets you going energetically, or a song that you hear it and you go, oh, that describes me so much.
Well, look, wow, energetically, it's I'm an 80s baby. So, I love my 80s, but look, I think Coldplay have a song called Up and Up. And if you watch the video, it's inspiring. And it really talks about the journey and how we can evolve. I think if we all have an approach of how can we be better individuals for each other and not have to feel that we're competing against each other, I think globally we can benefit from that approach. Right now is a time that we need to support each other. What you're doing right now is allowing people to have a voice. It's allowing people to hear a different perspective, a different view. It may not be what they agree with, but I always think that it's a different view. And even if you capture 5% of something you didn't know before, you've grown. So now's the time we can help each other to grow as people. And the people that need the most help are the ones that are in the hardship. And I know you put out an expression of interest of saying, if you need someone to talk to, I'm here. That's a powerful message because it says we're not just focused on the people that are getting through the tough journey. We're focused on the people that are going through hardship. And those are the people that need us the most. And sometimes we have perception that the strongest will be the ones that survive the easiest. It's not always the truth. So we all can help each other in this time. And sometimes it's just little things like, how are you doing? And how can I help you?
Yeah, absolutely. So being someone that was born in America.
Mm.
This question will be very interesting how you answer this. Peanut butter, Vegemite, or Promite on your
Oh,
toast?
look, okay, so remember, I didn't grow up with a lot of money, so PB&J got me through many dinners in my teenage years when, as you know, as an athlete, you consume more than usually the fridge can hold. So peanut butter and jelly was my go-to, and it still is to this date. And I've actually converted my two Aussie boys who were born in Australia into the PB&J.
Good work, good work. What's your favorite movie of all time?
Wow. That's a really, hold, let me think about that.
Okay, we'll come back to that one.
There's
What's
so
your
many,
best?
there's so many good genres. I'm
Yeah.
just, yeah.
One that,
So,
and I sort of, when people ask me that, I was like, one that I could watch over and over and over and over and not get sick of it.
okay, well, there's a few of those for me. I mean, and I've got them, you know, I purchased, I mean, I love, I love Shawshank,
Redemption.
is amazing.
Yeah.
Great storyline. I love Moneyball because it actually gives people inner sanctum of the analytics in sport that exists, not just the physical, but the analysis of reading data and how sports evolve, particularly in baseball.
Yeah.
That's a very good, and it's actually a very close depiction of where sport has transitioned, particularly baseball has over the last 10 plus years.
Yeah.
So those would be two that I really enjoy. And I love Gladiator. I just love the whole thing about getting
Yeah. Yeah. What advice would you give to a young athlete that may be in their early teens, and they have that desire to go to the Olympics or to World Championships or whatever it is in their sport? What's your best advice for them?
I have a couple messages for that individual, and they're all critical and they're all relying on each other. Number one, and the most important, believe in you. No matter what is around you and whatever the people think about you, it doesn't matter. It's what you believe in you. That's the most thing. Only you can tell you that you can't do something.
Mm-hmm.
The first and foremost, believe in yourself, trust yourself, and that's what's most important. Number two, do not fear failure. Failure leads to growth. The more you fail, the more you grow, because you won't follow the same path. But if you choose not to take on the path where you fail, you will never grow. So failure for me is, what are the lessons in failure that I learned that now allow me to grow? And sometimes people go, why does that happen to me? That's not fair. But don't look at the emotional side of what it meant. Look at the learning of what it did. And a lot of times it'll mean you've grown in an area that you just didn't know. And most people fail because they just didn't know to avoid that obstacle or that person or that agenda. And the moment you can step back and analyze something, you'll minimize failure. Don't feel like you have to rush into something. Prepare so that way, when you do take it on and you fail, you can analyze your own processes. And the other one, don't have singular focus. Because you're an elite swimmer or you're an elite baseball player does not mean that you have to put all your energies there. And this is coming from smarter people than me. I sit on a transition board as well, and we're talking about athlete transition. And one of the things that's come from the research is that athletes that have more than one focus, family, social, education, or skill development, as well as their sport, if you evolve around that cycle, you'll get better outcome. But you also have to have a downtime, which means you take your focus around what you do. You can maintain it so you don't lose the skill set, but just reduce the workload and then focus on other things that help you grow outside of that one singular focus area. Because what happens is when we have singular focus and we fail, everything comes crumbling down. Mm-hmm. So think about it like this. When I have multiple support pillars to hold me up in my frame, and one lets go, I still have 3 to 4 others that keep me intact. But when I put singular focus on one outcome and that fails, my house comes down. So it's like building a foundation to a business or a home or a family. The more pillars that you have, the stronger your outcome. So one's going to let you down, but 8 others may keep you in place. So those are the 3 lessons.
Yeah,
Believe and
love it.
trust yourself. Don't fear failure, and have more than one focus area in your life. And it could be reading, it could be mentor groups, it could be meditation. There's nothing that is the perfect fit, but find those other focus areas to make you more stable as a person.
Great advice, Paul. Great advice. Now, who would you like to meet, whether they're alive or dead? Who is that person that you would go, oh, I'd love to meet them?
It's funny you asked that. I did meet one person I wanted to meet, and it was Michael Jordan. He was with the White Sox organization, and a very unique individual, but not just physically, mentally. The way he played golf, the way he played ping pong, the way he spoke to you. He was a mental giant as well as a physical giant, hence why you've got this elite individual. A person I would have loved to have met and I didn't get a chance to meet was Muhammad Ali. He was at the Olympic Village, and he was sitting having lunch in the village, and he's the first human I've ever seen that a whole village stopped to honor and acknowledge this man. What he conveyed, not as an athlete, but his message to the world. And I would have loved to had, just to have a chance to talk to him, because you're talking about a global game changer in his message. And like I said, he stopped a village. We're talking about, you've been in the villages, Jules. It's the most elite of the elite on the planet, and the whole world stopped for this one man.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be great. I got massive goosebumps with that one too. Would have been a great time.
Yeah.
Well, Paul, thank you so much for your wisdom today. Thank you so much for your message, and thanks for your time. Time is one of the most precious things we have, and I really appreciate the fact that someone so busy could fit in half an hour with me, so I appreciate it.
Well, in closing, Jules, thank you. Your initiative is very powerful. It's connecting people to different messages when we need to sell more positive. You and I talked briefly before we did the Zoom session, and we talked about let's convey the positive message. We know there's a lot of there's awareness around us. We don't need to be more informed than we are. We need to respect, what our parameters are. However, it doesn't mean we have to stop selling the positive message. And what you're doing is such a positive message for all of Australia.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, Paul, thanks again.
Thank you, Jules.
Bye.
Bye.